are you getting from this exercise of going through the sweeps? Now, don't think just in terms of Tao Te Ching. Think of what we are doing from Gospel of John. And just any thoughts? We'll start with Joe.
Yeah, so in terms of Tao Te Ching, this going through it with this translation, when I was doing it, or when I do it weekly, I look at multiple translations and then I look at Jason's. But so just going through Jason's and having that literal translation, I think is a much more, it's a much more pure form of what the Tao, because he's literally translating it word for word. He's not putting his spin on it. So I'm getting a lot out of this, as well as kind of getting a lot out of looking at multiple different translations during the week.
No,
So
the question is, what do you think of today's meetup, where we went through a whole sweep? We are going to continue going through details of Aquinas, through Gospel of John, through Gita, chapter by chapter, through Tao Te Ching, verse by verse. But in addition to that, what do you think of periodically doing meetups like this, where we go through a whole sweep of those?
I think that it's very helpful, in the sense that you get as many people to say something succinct, and then that that clarifies. I think people come away when you're forced to say something succinctly, that you're really kind of capturing what the idea is. So that's helpful. And in fact, if I were to listen to the videos, I'd probably listen to this video to go through and make my notes, versus maybe listening to the ones that we go really in depth. For a couple hours a week. So that's very much worthwhile. And I think the same holds true with the Gospel of John when we went through our marathon, versus our passages during the week. That yes, the marathon, actually we really got some good feedback, and it was very quick, and I think it's much more conducive to getting a high level understanding, and then we can go in depth on our own. So wonderful. I think that these are very helpful.
Thank you, Joe. David.
Hi, Shrikant and everybody. I mean, this has great precedent, because in the Old Testament, the Bible, upon the Israelites and Ezra returning from Babylon and to rebuild the Second Temple, Ezra read the entire law to the people. So there was a statement of that everybody came, and from morning until noon, he read, from beginning to end, the entire law. So there's precedent for we're doing that again with yes. all of these different ones. But in the broader sense, I mean, not a joke, completely that way. That I mean, it's a question in my mind whether it's better to start from the outside in or the inside out. I mean, to have that, and what I'm saying is that having that entire arc for all of these is very important. I mean, in some ways we get so much into the weeds, or not, I mean, but you lose the forest for the trees, because we're going through and looking at, okay, let's examine this tree, and this is a coniferous, and this has this thing, and without having the initial context of, okay, here's Yosemite. I mean, here's here's the giant redwoods. I mean, like you sort of don't understand what you're seeing without having that broad sweep for all of these. I mean, if it was possible, I'm not saying, I mean, to even this incredible comparative religion course that essentially you're teaching here, with all of these, and as people, as Penny, as Joe, as all of us, Angela, Evanique, everybody is, bringing all these different contexts as we're seeing one or the other, that I and everybody are commenting on, okay, this reminds me of the Tao, and this reminds me of John, and this reminds me of the Gita, and this, I mean, and there's all of this, which undoubtedly was occurring in the content, well, maybe not, the Tao, but I mean, in China, and the mixture of that with Buddhism and Ruism, and similarly in the East, I mean, there clearly was trading going on with, the Jewish with Zoroastrianism, with Hinduism, with the Gita, and having all of these different sort of I don't mean competing religions in the negative sense. But that there was, a lot of these philosophical concepts through the trade networks that were going on were clearly merging, and to be able to see those comparisons and how they were influencing each other. It was possible for us to even, we can bring some experts, to like read through all of these, different religions and their great books simultaneously, to just get those arcs to see that comparison. It's not physically possible with time and our stamina, but it's only with that greater context that we can sort of see that. And then broader, what you're doing is, very much, again, what I sort of repeating another thing that I said before of the Gita and these yogas, where we're saying that it really is with the Gita, you have these 18 different yogas, and it's meant to be, okay, find which one resonates with you. And that's the way to lead you to enlightenment. And similar with all these religions, the sense of, okay, you've got Taoism, you've got Ruism, it's not that one is, and Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism and, Islam, all these, they all are truths. It's not a matter, and the true people who are enlightened don't look at it in the sense of, oh, mine is better than yours, and this one's right, or this one. And as we're sort of talking with Yasuhiko and this afternoon, it's not a matter of, well, my guru is better than your guru, and it's a matter of which resonates with you, which is the way that you're going to be able to reach your own true enlightenment. And so I think that's what's great about this entire conversation, is it's giving people to see, because this is actually one of the things I wanted to ask. I think the 18th, we haven't gotten to the end of the Gita, but it talks about that you need this dialectic, you need this conversation. You don't just get it through your own epiphany. It's through this conversation. And I think that it's that conversation that we're having, but also the conversation that this great arc, of what you, Shrikant, are creating, or the conversation between these different religions, between these different great books, that is actually exposing the enlightenment, that's exposing this knowledge. Because maybe it's not a matter of, okay, it's just this one religion, it's just this one yoga. It's like, okay, it's how this yoga from the Gita interacts with John. It's how this yoga from the Gita interacts with the Old Testament, Exodus and Genesis. How this one interacts with the Tao. It's that interaction that then you get, oh, now I understood what that religion meant. Now I understood what that phrase meant. And then one can hopefully reach the enlightenment.
Fantastic comments. I'm going to respond to several things, and then I would like to hear from other people too, because I want to explain what we are doing. I want to step back and talk about what we are doing, how we are doing it. So I'm just going to rattle them off in multiple ways. So I'm very much like, I love the Gospel of John, because he's called the eagle. He goes at 30,000 feet and then swoops in anytime he wants. So it goes from the broadest principles to the most concrete things, and doing that all the time. My mind works naturally like that. So I actually need to have the overview. I cannot function without it at all. So Dao De Jing, when I was reading it, I just listened to it many times before. And the whole thing can be listened to in 1.5 hours, or no, actually 1 hour, Dao De Jing. So you listen to it many, many times. You choose things that speak. And the other thing, part of it is that spoken, all of these texts were meant to be spoken as well. So hearing them is very powerful. And your mind starts to put together the patterns. It happens in your subconscious, then it becomes explicit. You have to build that in order to understand the richness of what is being presented, just for even a single one of those. So in my way of thinking, doing this passes over the whole is not an optional thing for me. I cannot really get much out of diving in without having that entire base. And if you do have the entire base of where Gita is going, where all the adhyayas are, when you're looking at Dhyana Yoga, one particular point, what you can get from it is many times more, because you can see exactly where it fits in. So that's one point. The second point is, this is very important. This is all individual quests for us. Really, the reason it works is that all the people that we have here are doing this from their heart, in their own way, in their own method. That's one thing, because if we don't have that, then really we don't have much. That's first. And then we are communicating on the top of that. So having this individual take on it, we bring our own backgrounds to it. Our backgrounds differ quite a bit on all these three religions, all these three cultures. Familiarity with the cultures varies quite a bit. There are tremendous advantages to familiarity, and there are tremendous advantages to unfamiliarity, because you will notice something about things that are unfamiliar to you, which a person who is steeped in that may not even notice. It may be a humongous point, but they will not notice because they have been swimming in it. They are fish in the water. Okay, so the fact that we are all pursuing it on our own and are talking to each other about it, that is huge. Next, this point about dialogue is critical. All of these works are done in scribal context, which is full of dialogue. So all the written work, Aquinas commentaries that we are reading, these are conversations he's having with students at University of Paris. He's giving lectures, he's answering questions. Somebody's taking, these are what we have is student notes of somebody taking down the notes. And they are continuously talking to each other about this. This is the part of, the Torah, the Talmud, all of that is that is the part of the tradition of the conversation. And we are having a conversation, and that is critical. This oral conversation where our personalities, our emotions, our thoughts are going back and forth as people interpreting the word is what is making them come alive in our minds and in our lives. So the dialogue that we are having is a critical part of it. The other thing I'm saying is that this is a very unusual context. Most people who are focused on one of these cannot actually do this because they are locked in to their particular interpretation of the text. They are, and this applies to, Tao Te Ching, this applies to Gita, this applies to the Bible. They will have their own take, and they cannot even look at other takes on the same text. They're not open to that. So the other big thing that we have here is that we have really a strong tradition of openness and respect, where we are able to explicate our own take on it and listen to the other person's text on a given text. On the top of that, we are looking at three great traditions, which are so different from each other. And we are looking at them, one in their own right. We are not just trying to do a superficial connection. We're diving deep into each of them. And we are trying to see patterns in them. And each of us is doing that independently and then sharing it. Okay, this is actually really remarkable what we are doing. So thank you very much for all the comments. A lot of good things are going to come from this individually for each of us. For me, it is already happening. Plus, I think it's happening for many people as well. So I think that is very good. So those are my reactions. Let me go to Brian next. Brian.
I'm probably not the only person aware of this. There is a name for this sort of comparative, you call it study or appreciation of these wisdom traditions. It's called Perennial Philosophy. And that really is the express specific purpose of perennial philosophy. And the one example of it, a book by Aldous Huxley, which I've read and I'm rereading, is entitled exactly that. And he talks about not all, but most of the topics we're talking about. And he brings in quotes from the Christian tradition, the Bhagavad-Gita, the Tao tradition, the Buddhist, and the Greek philosophy on all of these points, and it's amazing the patterns and similarities. He's not the only one who's done that, but I'm amazed at exactly what Shrikant said. The way we're doing it is so much more powerful. And it really is remarkable. The word that comes to my mind when I'm not at the meetups, it's historic. I think what's being done here is historic. To answer the question about these overall reviews is, I think it's good. For me, it's personally good because number one, it's a chance to review the things, all of these texts that I have read and discussed previously. So it's a reminder of those readings and discussions and my takeaways from them, a quick reminder. Secondly, it's a rereading because I don't remember all of it. And then I have new impressions. Some of them might be the same, some might be different. They are not as extensive as the impressions I have after the lengthy discussions. But to me, a key thing is that I'm finding even the more superficial initial impressions are also very valid and useful. So I don't feel like I really, really like the in-depth, and I would very much like to continue that. I love it. But this is giving me another perspective, in particular, I guess one of more confidence that now I can read and understand on my own. It's not as good as the understanding from the group.
Welcome,
but on
everybody.
my own, I can also benefit.
Mhm. Thank you. Sorry about the audio here. Sorry, Brian, are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic comments. Thank you very much. And I think this, what we're doing, is very special. I'm not able to yet see the full implications of it, but I think this is something that I personally need to do in order to figure things out. And I think this is kind of, even at the history level, these three cultures, India, China, and West, need to understand each other at a very deep level. In some ways, they have lost their own history. They don't really, their history is actually much more powerful than what they think it is. It's kind of retrieving that history in its purest form, in the most powerful form, and then seeing the combinations, seeing both the commonalities and the differences and the combinations that can be done, both appreciating the uniqueness and what a combination would look like. So it's quite incredible what we're doing. I'm doing several new things along the same line. Number one, for the Bhagavad-Gita ones, I'm currently just completely immersed in Bhagavad-Gita, and it is just incredible what I'm learning. It's through a commentator called Jnaneshwar, who is a contemporary of Aquinas. I've just finished Jnaneshwari. It took me about around 40 hours of listening to it. But it is really profound. It makes Gita far more accessible than Gita itself. We are doing with Yogeshwar, I'm fortunate to have my friend Yogeshwar helping me with this. And together, I think we are a good team. We have kind of strengths that kind of are complementary. So, and we work very well together. So it's wonderful. So what we are doing is that we're trying to, in some ways, the Indian mind is the hardest one to understand to a Western audience, much more so than Tao, I think. And because it's all internal, it's difficult to describe what is inside, what is going on inside the consciousness. So we are doing a bunch of things in order to make that more accessible. So this Friday, what we're going to do is that Yogeshwar is going to do a presentation on the three yogs and how actually they operate in Gita as a whole. So it will be a great way of actually understanding, because so far we are, Gita is giving you those piece by piece. He's going to put it together. He's given me like a version of it, and it's fantastic. So don't miss that one. If you want to go to one Gita meetup, come for the one on Friday, because it's going to give you a very good overview of these three yogs. And it also shows you the unique way in which Gita approaches things. It is like a multi-pronged way. There are multiple paths that are designed, and you can walk on all of them, and all of them actually are leading to the same thing. They build on one another, and he's going to explain exactly how this thing works. These three paths of Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. How do they all kind of come together? That's what he's going to explain. And then we will continue with the chapters that we have. We are working on chapter 6. So that's one project, and we will continue coming up with things on Gita, which will make things more and more, easily accessible. The second thing I'm doing with the Gospel of John is that I'm having conversations with friends. I've started with my friend Baron, and see, for others, if they think it's a big deal going through the entire gospel, I actually do these things, like I listen to them quite often. Okay, so I had a conversation with him, about 3-hour conversation on the Gospel of John, where he read the gospel and talked about it. Then I talked about it, and we went. Then I cut out my part, so it is mostly him talking, him reading out the gospel and talking about it. So it's on the YouTube channel. Joe, if you could find it, it's called, reading with something. It's a, Gospel of John picture on the YouTube. And if you could put that in. And I have signed up a whole bunch of friends to do that. I'm going to do, with Evelyn and hopefully Joe. I'm always concerned that he takes on too many things. So I'll negotiate with him. But I have a friend called Nick who actually reads the original Greek. And so he reads Gospel of John in Greek, the original Greek. And I told him, okay, look, can we go through this entire gospel? He says, look, normally what happens is that when I read one verse, I typically read 14 or to 15 pages of commentary on that. That is my approach to it. So I said, okay, let's just do John 1:1. And maybe we will just get through just one paragraph. So I'm going to have, and we'll start with Greek. So we'll do the Greek version of John, at least the first paragraph, if not the whole John 1:1. But the way I want to do that is that I'm just going to do that as a conversation. I'm going to record it and put it on YouTube. So that way it will have the integrity of a one-on-one conversation. And it will have, and it will be accessible. And then I'm going to talk to my friend Peter, who typically reads it in Latin. So Latin, it was used in Latin for a long period of time. So he'll be using the Latin version of it. When Brian gets well, I'm going to ask him. I know he reads it in 7 different languages, so I'll figure out something with him. And Evelyn, Evanique, of course, she really loves this. And so I'll figure out something with her. And then maybe with Joe, or, basically what I'm doing is that I'm trying to create like these really intense dialogues. Maybe with Evanique or Joe, I can do that in the meetup. With Nick or Baron or Peter, they are, kind of friends. So I think it's better to do it just one-on-one and then post it for you guys. But again, it's the same issue of kind of trying to take a whole sweep through it. In this case, through a single person who really appreciates it. And we will come at it through multiple angles. So that's the second project. Maybe on Dao De Jing, we can do something like that. I don't know yet. But that's my kind of, currently I'm focused primarily on Gita to move it forward. Secondarily on the Gospel of John, and only tertiary on Dao De Jing. But at some point we will come back, once Amon and Jason finish the translations, maybe we can do that. All right, Joe, you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there was anything with the Nanishwar. That's only in Marathi, right?
There are versions of Nanishwar in English. I think Yogeshwar has read a version in English. Yogeshwar, if you could put it in chat, which version you read in English? Because the thing is that I'm not, I'm not a very good person to recommend that. Currently, I'm just trying to take in Nanishwar. And it's just, my Marathi is good. It's good. So I'm able to actually understand it in Marathi. So anything in English, my mind doesn't really, get into that. So I don't know whether it's good or not. And Marathi language is not as, there isn't as large a tradition of translation of that as Sanskrit. So it's a smaller, smaller group of things. Again, the availability might vary. Some things may be available only in India, may not be available here. But I'll keep an eye out for that. What I am doing is that I am doing the translation myself for the meetups. So I read Nanishwar and then I translate it. Last meetup that I did, what I did with the introduction of chapter 6, that's what it was. So I'll continue to do that. Yeah, so that's the one, the Gospel of John. That's the one with Baron, and that's the kind of thing that I'm going to do with multiple people. All right. Anybody else wants to comment about anything about this entire process that we are going through with these three works? So Yogeshwar has put one translation. Joe, go ahead. You were saying something.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Okay. Evanik, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you. This has been amazing, and all the meetups, being able to link them all together. And I think doing an overarching, doing it broad and in depth really makes you realize how many similarities there are in Yasuhiko today, talking about there's not one way to the truth or to enlightenment. So I think these meetups show that, and they're all basically the same principles, but it's great to see them in different cultures and how they play out and how they describe the basic same thing of the core and the periphery, and really just finding the nature of who you are as a person is key. So I think you get that all across. And I think doing these these broad ways of doing it help that. And hearing other people's comments on them really help me get an overarching picture of what it is and seeing the similarities. And it's great. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next up is Krishna Das. Krishna, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just a poor student, but I really do appreciate the finding an outline, like your point this time about talking about the important division starting between 37 and 38, Tao and the day. It's really important, and it's the structure. What is the argument that this committee is trying to present? How are they trying to structure the argument? What are the atoms? What are the parts that they're presenting? I mean, what is being presented with Tao Te Ching is definitely different from what is in the Yanashwari or the Bhagavad-Gita. So it's more a question of what is the structure of their argument and what are the things that they emphasize? What do they bring out? It's these things that I'm interested in, and I would hope that my betters are able to bring them to my attention.
So that is a very profound question. And what for that, like, for example, let's take Gita, right? So there are multiple people, great people, who have written commentaries on Gita, and they all approach it from multiple angles. And if you read all of them and kind of develop a conversation between all of them, and then choose the one that works for you, is probably the minimum amount of work that is needed to bring it together. So because that way, it's like, it's basically, it's an individualized process. Gita certainly holds that it's between you and God, and there are multiple ways to God, including, work, including devotion, including knowledge, including concentration. All of these are ways of going. You have to understand yourself. You have to choose ones that work with you. You have to work with people who are kind of advanced on one or more of those, maybe multiple such people over time to do this. So it's kind of, it's a long process. There is no easy road.
I guess that's what I'm hoping for is, I'm somebody in the 5th century BC, and I don't have Google, right? And I can't read 10 different versions. I only have my guru, and I'm hoping to find a teacher who can explain what are these parts that, and how do I put them together, and how can I arrange my mind?
There is so the one I would recommend, one thing I would recommend is Yasuhiko has a nice essay, Be Your Own Guru. That's the way I'm thinking of it. That's the way I think of it.
We're lucky that we do have Google, so we can, be our own guru easily.
Yes. So that's what I would, basically, I think, I think I very much of a, from the tradition that you have to kind of do this. Primarily, if people can help you a little bit, but mostly you have to do it yourself. That's how I'm approaching it. All right, folks. Thank you very much. This is a great meetup. We'll see you soon. I just want to tell you one final thing. In addition to everything else we said, I'm trying to do meetups explicitly connecting up all of this, like the ones on YouTube. If you go to center and periphery, if you search for center, those are the ones that I'm doing where I'm trying to explicitly bring many of these things together. All right, folks, see you soon. Bye.